I got a few different questions for you. First off, how long have you been playing Overwatch for?
Kind of on and off over the course of a year. Been kind of hard stuck gold. I got to low plat at one time, and then I was back down to gold.
Hmm.
Um, I think a big part of it is just not playing consistently, and now that I have more
Yeah.
free time kind of spared up, I've started to play a little bit more consistently.
Hmm.
And something I realized, like I normally played Reaper, and I ran into issues when I started getting into plat because I felt like I was getting less value. Um, Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it pretty much I just started to feel like I was getting less value, so I tried different heroes, and I ended up, because I was one tricking, ended up dropping when I was switching different heroes. So I'm just trying to work with some different heroes right now and
All right.
see where
What?
that kind of takes me.
So what different heroes are you trying to work with? Because I see that on Fiverr you didn't list like kind of what heroes were you working with.
Yeah, so right now I'm primarily trying to focus on projectile. So right now Hanzo, Echo, Farah are who I'm playing primarily, and then I do play hit scan kind of on the
Hmm.
side, like if I need to take care of somebody
All
that my
right.
teammate's not taking care of. So I definitely have a decent amount of play time with like Soldier, McCree, and Ash as well.
All right. And then second question for you is, let's going on the note of you playing more recently. Let's say like the past 2 weeks or so. How often have you been playing the game?
Honestly, probably I'd say I average about 20 to 30 hours per week,
All right. And
like as of right
then,
now.
yep. And the final question for you is, do you have any questions for me before you begin?
No, just trying to want to see how the session goes. I was working with Hadan earlier, but trying to
Mm.
reach out to some different coaches and see how that goes. See different
All
people's
right.
perspectives.
All right. Yeah. Well, then we
So
can definitely go ahead and get started here.
let's do it.
Be careful out there.
This might be quiet for a minute or so while we're looking for something to work on.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Exporting the payload.
All right. Um. So I'm already looking at one thing. I'm just gonna see if it continues on for a moment, and then we can move on. So, already right off the bat, are you familiar with the term crosshair placement?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Understanding what it means, not really sure.
Not
I'm
really sure.
assuming
All
just
right.
trying to keep it in a good spot.
Yeah, that's a rough sense of the word. Yep. Crosshair placement is essentially placing your crosshair in the best place possible to hit the most and easiest shots. Right. It's just placing your crosshair in a great spot. Now, how that looks and how you can look to better apply that is basically one big first step to this is making sure that we're aiming at head level. Headshots
Yep.
obviously are just gonna do a lot more for you than hitting body shots, right? Headshots can one shot for you, body shots aren't gonna be doing as much, it's gonna be doing like half the damage. Um,
Yep.
so the big first step is we aim head level. When we aim body level, this means that we have to adjust up and to the right or up and to the left. And when we have to adjust a further distance, that means that we are going to be less likely to hit the shot because it's a harder shot to hit, right? If we have to go like this, it's oh well I hit it, but it's a lot harder of a shot to hit than if you're already aiming here, right? Because there's a very little adjustment, right? Therefore, it's an easier shot, and you're gonna be hitting it a lot more often. Now,
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
yep. Also on a character like Hanzo where you're just spamming a lot, that kind of happened on the first point there where we're just kind of spamming down the corridor trying to hit something. If we're aiming
Hmm.
at body level and we do hit something, our default shot's just going to be body level, but if we adjust upwards and we're just spamming down the same corridor, aiming at head level, now all of our default shots, all our spam shots into shields, down a corridor, just like now hitting head level and not hitting headshots, right?
Yep.
But that's not the only part of crosshair placement. Another big part is placing a crosshair where we know people are going to be. So if we know he's top left here, we can pre-aim right outside the doorway here so that it's very little adjustment before we get that kill, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
We know he's on our left. We pre-aim left side, already aiming head level. So we come out, already aiming at his head. Now, here we know that they're a little bit on a slope, here on a slant. So this would be like characters on a slope, or for example, if we're going up against a Torbjorn or against a tank where we aim higher, we just have to adjust a little bit downwards, right? So when we're coming out here, we're just looking down, and therefore it's just very little adjustment. Right?
Gotcha.
So we can go back to the game that we're looking at, and I'll just show you the instance that I'm looking at and why I even brought it up in the first place. Oh, we're on Dorado, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
I have so many, so many replays. Sometimes it gets confusing. Alright, so here's where we kind of noticed it when we were just kind of spamming down the corridor, so we can watch at where we kind of place our crosshair. So here we're just going to spam a little bit. So here this is fine head level, but we're about to adjust to a little bit lower, and at this distance you have to keep in mind that the further away and further away you get, you have a drop to your arrow. So if we're getting a little bit further away from people, you actually have to aim up a little bit to be hitting headshots. So we can't the further and further away we get from people, we're not just aiming at their head level, which here we are, but you're going to see where this arrow goes is it does not go to head level. It ends up, because, well, now more ends up crouching, but you can see it on Mercy, right? It ends up going below into her chest. So the further away someone is, we have to aim just a little bit above their heads. So we just want to get into the habit of placing a crosshair in a good spot here, because it is a little bit more towards body level here on these guys a lot of the time. All right, so we got that out of the way. We'll just move on now. Okay, nice Sonic. Shoot out that before your Sonic, or sorry, Storm Arrowing there. Just shoot out the first shot. That way you get the extra damage in. Because there, if we charge up a shot and then just Storm Arrow, then we're wasting that potential for damage that we could have used off of the first shot. Because we can go first shot, and then the Storm Arrows means that we don't have to now charge up the second shot. But using the Storm Arrows means that we don't get that first shot in.
Totally makes sense. I didn't even think about that.
Okay, here you can just see it once again. Just I don't want to spend too much time on the topic, but just you can see it one more time here with crosshair placement. Here we're just aiming a little low on the Reinhardt, where we're just kind of aiming a little bit low at his ankles there, and then here on the Moira we're aiming a little bit low as well, where we're not really aiming at the head level.
Gotcha.
All right, now we'll of course I don't. That is going to be a biggie a lot of the times, but I don't want to spend the entire session going over that. So we're gonna move on from now. Even if I notice it, maybe I'll just comment on it, and then we'll move on to something else. So try to look for a different area to work on now.
Perfect.
All right, I like Storm Arrows and Sonics are looking pretty decent. Good request healing habit.
So right here, I'm trying to cut off the Ryan with my ult from his team.
All right, so
that's kind of my thought process with this one right here.
Yeah. Okay, so two things. First off, I would say in between fights, look to retake the best positioning possible, because we can very easily take it from them and put ourselves in good positions before the next fight. Here, that's probably going to want to be this top right high ground, as high ground gives you a ton of benefits. We can just talk about those real quick. First off, it all acts as natural cover, right? They can see us, now they can't see us. They can see us, now they can't see us, right? So therefore, all of high ground acts as really good natural cover, which gives us survivability. It also means that most characters in the game can't get up to us. Mei can't get to us, Reinhardt can't get to us, Moira can't get to us. It's very difficult for them to shoot at us. So that means that's additional survivability on top of that. And then thirdly, also gives us very, very good visual angles to where we can see all of high ground. On low ground, you can't see all of high ground. We can see anything over there, over here, right? All of this point over there. Whereas if we're on the low ground over here, it limits our visibility quite a bit. So we don't really have access to shoot at as much. Now here, I think if our team is paying attention, we might not need this because of the fact that they have 3 people in spawn over here. But the other thing is it looks like we have a bunch of people on cart. So honestly, potentially not too terrible here. So yeah, doing that cutoff is fine. Look to put some distance between yourself and the wall here, because you can see how when you launch out a dragon, you have some distance between you and where it's starting, right? Because you're shooting on arrows, so you can see you are like standing right here, but it ends up going all the way over here, which means that we're missing a large portion of this this alleyway here, which we were
Yep.
trying to block off. So when we're firing this here, look to stand a little bit further away from the wall. That way we're not getting caught, getting it, on that half of the alley or whatever you call
Yep.
the street. Okay, nice headshots. All right, so far looking really good. We have a good time bank going.
Let's get to that outfit.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I am not deterred.
Yep, nothing major happening so far. Ability usage is looking pretty decent, though I've only seen one Sonic so far, so that might be one that we just want to make sure we're using more often.
Yep.
Okay, so like that one's pretty good.
Let's keep it moving. Heroes never die.
Good general mechanics so far.
This.
All right, well, but of course, it's a 60-minute game, so we'll see it go bad at some point here.
Yep.
All right, so in this instance, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this one's pretty even, though I would probably say that you got that ult might not be needed. As at this point you guys are winning this fight pretty solidly. So how we can know this is by mainly paying attention to kill feed and making sure we're paying attention to kill feed, the top right corner of your screen, right? When we pay attention to that, it tells us when we're up or down people. In a fight
Yep.
right here, I'm paying attention to the fact that it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus a 1, 2, 3, 4, which means that we have a 2% advantage. On top of that, we are using 2 ultimates, which adds even more an advantage, and we also have better positioning, and D.Va's about to die here, right? So a lot of stuff that adds up. So now, this is a lost fight, therefore in a lost fight, you don't want to use it. I kind of skipped ahead here, so let's go over like how do you know that it's a lost fight. So typically, you just want to pay attention to kill feed, and when your team is up 1 to 2 people, that's an advantage, right? At that point, you can play more aggressive because they have less people, right? You can get away with a lot more. When you are up 2 to 3 people, that is where you have pretty much won the fight. At that point, you don't want to use an ult in a one fight. That's why we were saying maybe in the last fight, if your team is with you, it might not be necessary. But in a one fight, ults are overkill, right? Which it would be this situation exactly right here, right?
Yep.
And then we also just want to look to play super aggressive at that point, to look to go ahead and try to finish off stagger kills, which we'll go over in a second, right? Just because we really don't have anything to be afraid of when they're down half their team. Right. Now, this also goes the exact opposite way. When we are down 1 to 2 people, that is a disadvantage. That doesn't mean we lost the fight. We're just losing, so we might want to play a little bit more passive. Down 2 to 3 people is a lost fight, which means that we don't want to use our ults again, because our ult's not going to change the fact that it's lost most of the time. And on top of that, we want to look to get out if possible, and if we can't get out or we don't think we can get out, we want to let them kill us so we don't end up staggering ourselves. Are you familiar with that term, staggering?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep. All right, then good.
Kind of a question here, real quick. So I noticed I mean, at least in this game, I was getting my ults pretty quick with Hanzo, about 1 every minute or so, because I think I've had, is it my second or third dragon already?
Yep, second one. Yep.
With that being the case, because I don't have anybody to really combo with, if you do get them frequently, should you just be throwing them out like when you're able to, or is it more so like?
So 2 things here. First off, I would say that's the necessary. I wouldn't say that's true that you don't have anything to combo with, as Sigma is probably Hanzo's second best combo in the game with his dragon. Being Flux Dragon is a very easy way to combo your ultimate. He fluxes people up in the air. If you fire your dragon underneath that means that basically they're stuck. They can't move, so it acts like kind of a grab, and then it slams them into your dragon when they're half HP. So it's a very, very easy way to finish off targets.
Nice.
I probably say only outpaced by a grab, and that's it. I probably say there's probably no other better combo with dragon in the game. Now, the second thing to mention is, yes, you are correct. You do want to use your ults frequently. I definitely, that's something I talk to people. I have people who will hold on to their ults for 4 fights in a row, and I'm like, okay, you got to use it more often. But basically the rule goes, you use ults in any fight that is not won or lost, right? But at any other time is fair game. right? Which is going to
Yeah.
happen pretty frequently. And a lot of times you want to use your ults at the very beginning of fights to basically secure the
Get a
win
numbers
fast.
advantage.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep.
You know, I notice at this rank a lot. Like, it's very common. Like, if I'm playing with a Zarya, for example, or something, they're like literally holding on to their grab to get
Yep.
like a 5-6 person grab, and they'll literally hold
Mhm.
on to it. We'll lose 4 fights, and at that point, I'm like, I'm just throwing, gonna throw
Yeah.
my dragon out.
hmm
You know,
Yep.
so just trying to figure out when the best time is to use it. I normally try to cut off the tanks if I can. My concern here was like, I guess I wasn't really paying attention to the kill feed, but like
Yep.
every time I see a Ryan, if I can cut him off from his team, I try to do that because I want to at least secure this point since we're pretty close.
Mhm.
I didn't realize how far away or close the other people were to coming back.
Yep, which that's how just awareness in general works is when you have good awareness of your environment, you are capable of making good decisions. As we see here, when we don't know what's happening around us, we can't make a good decision to not use dragon, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
awareness allows you to make that good decision, but if we're not aware, then we can't make that decision.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Besides that, the only thing I would just say with Zari's holding on the grabs for 5 fights in a row, which is definitely unfortunate. Only thing I would say is just maybe try to say something, type in a chat, like call it out. Hey, sorry, I looked to use grab here early. I'm waiting on you. All right, that way it
Mhm.
just ends up happening. But we can continue here. All right, nice kill.
Marked by the dragon.
All right, so you can just see, for example, like here, how like if our default height is head level, then this just natural shot on the Mercy becomes a headshot. All right,
Yeah.
it's just how crosshair placement works. Just means that you're in general just gonna be hitting a lot more headshots. But besides that, just good general like mechanics and hitting shots. Very nice.
My arrow finds its mark.
Okay, I hear Junkrat pacing around behind us. So you just gotta watch out for that.
See through the dragon's eyes.
Oh, looks like we weren't very aware of the diva that just flew over our head.
Yeah.
So just so far awareness is usually the one that takes the longest amount of out of any category that you look to work on in coaching. Awareness is usually the one that takes the longest to identify. Though so far it's looking like that might be one that needs to be worked on as we've
Mhm.
come into a few instances. But we'll keep taking a look at it.
I think I got tunnel vision with trying to kill Orion, which I
Yeah.
did.
Mhm. At this point, rather than just keep continuously doing this climb up, climb up, climb up, we can probably just take the high ground.
Yeah.
There's nothing to stop us from taking this high ground. Like if we look at their composition, the only long range damage they have is Mei, who can't even one tap us, right? So if we take high ground, we can pretty easily keep it and stay up here. Which again, we also get all the advantages that we talked about, as well as the fact that when we take high ground, well, it doesn't really apply in this situation, but another advantage of high ground is high ground is also good for the enemy team, and when we take high ground, we deny them from having it. So sometimes,
Yep.
even if we don't benefit from high ground, we might want to just rip it away from them to take the advantage away. Here, we're just
Yep.
doing a lot of unnecessary climb, drop,
Spam.
when we could just be up on the high ground. Now, this might be okay if you had a lot of things that contest you, but we don't really have too much that can contest us.
Yep, for sure. I think I did that for a little bit, and then I ended up going on high ground at some point.
Yep. So we go high ground here. Okay. Just another delayed reaction to the Mercy. She starts shooting us. Like, we can kind of watch this and kind of see how long it takes for us to notice this. All right. So Mercy comes. She valks. She starts shooting at us. Shoot, 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 shoot. Okay, and then we look at her. Right.
Then
So
get wiped.
and then we got
I'm down
nanoed.
for this.
So that's just another instance of awareness maybe being down. Well, I just I don't want to go too deep into awareness. Yeah, we'll talk about awareness at some point here because it is looking like it's being a repeat subject.
Mhm.
But we're not going to go too deep into it for the moment. Okay. So far, dragon placement has looked pretty good. No real problems with the placement of it. It's just the timing for the last two were maybe questionable. This one I like the timing a lot. Besides that, let's look at the positioning a little bit. So we ended up getting caught by the. For this, we probably should have looked to retake high ground after Mercy stopped chasing us around. Right, that puts us out of range of like a shatter, for example.
Yep, for sure.
Alright.
Heroes never die.
I am not deterred.
Alright, so far our initial kind of assessment of kind of strengths and weaknesses. Ability-wise, I think we're doing pretty good, especially with Storm Arrows. Sonic, I like to see just slightly used more often, as it's pretty much with both
Free
of them.
intel.
Yeah, it's free intel, right? So with Sonic, you're just using that thing pretty much every time you get it off a cooldown. You just toss it out there. You know, you want to get good spots with it, but you're just using it as often as you get it. Storm Arrow you might use a little bit more towards when it's a appropriate situation for it. But Sonic, you're just using it very, very often all the time. Besides that, ults so far, ults have looked a little bit inconsistent. But I think a lot of that comes down to the awareness and not necessarily directly how we're using our ultimate, but more when we're using it. So far, awareness is seeming like one of the areas that we're struggling with a lot. Ultimate usage, kind of in a medium area right now. Mechanics, looking pretty solid, generally, but we just want to work on the head level crosshair placement, and then that's pretty much it for mechanics so far. And then
Okay.
finally, we have positioning, where positioning's looking like it could be a lot more solid, especially with high ground usage. And just making sure we're consistently taking that when it's an option, as it's going to be really, really fantastic for us. But besides that, I just like to see more positioning. So that one's again kind of more like in the medium category of what needs to be worked on. So that's just
Yep.
kind of the initial assessment of what we're working with. Okay, bad Sigma ults. Okay, you can see Crosshair again here, not really at the appropriate level. Make sure you don't have charged shots. I've seen us doing that once in a while. Not too often, though. It's just not really something you want to do too often. The only times you're half charging shots are like anything but full charge is when you are going up against something who is close to you and low health. If they're far from you, that's going to be a very difficult projectile to try to land. And if they're
Yep.
not low health, then there's no use for a half charge shot because it's not going to one tap, which is a very very powerful tool in Hanzo's kit is his ability to one-shot things, right?
Yep.
So we just want to make sure we're fully charging our arrows, and it's also just gonna make it more accurate and easier to land. Because if you're working with uncharged shots, that's always gonna be it's always gonna be different, right? The projectile speed's always gonna be different if you're half charging them, but every time you fully charge it, it's the exact same speed going at to the exact same place, so it becomes a lot easier to predict and know where you're actually aiming it.
Gotcha.
Alright. So I think we might go over some more positional stuff here. Alright, so we're at 555. So we're just going to exit out here real quick. Go over some stuff here in Hanzo. So, target priority. So this is something I'd probably put in like kind of, it's not necessarily mechanics, but it is go into the category of just shooting at things. So we're just going to kind of put it, I usually just put it in that category, even though it's not directly the same thing. But target priority is like, who should we be shooting at? In general, the things that we should be shooting at is just anything that's not tanks.
Yep.
Usually tanks are just not what we want to shoot at because they have 2 to 3 times the health of other characters. They have shields, they have abilities, they can block damage, they have mobility, right? Whereas these guys, anything in support and DPS category is just going to be a lot easier to kill. And on top of that, they just have a lot more statistical output. Now, don't get me wrong, tanks are very, very important characters in the game, but their job is to create space for the other characters for damage, for DPS to do the damage and supports to do the healing, right? They have the statistical output, and therefore they're the ones that we want to be focusing. Now, that should be reflected in our positioning as well. If we're trying to shoot at non-tanks, then we want to take positioning that gets us to non-tanks, right? So this is where we get into something called off angles, and basically just if we're sitting on the main angle, so our team's here, enemy team's there, then to get to the things we want to kill, we have to go through shields, we have to go through tanks, which we just discussed. We don't want to be spending too much time shooting it because it's kind of wasted effort where we could be getting more value somewhere else. An off angle is anytime we're just not on this main angle and we're doing something like this, where now we're on this side flank where we can get behind the tanks and the shields very, very easily and kind of one-tap the supports in the background, a backline, right, do something there, and then just back out super easily, right?
Yeah.
An off angle is inherently short and inherently safe. Otherwise, you'd be going for a flank, right? Difference between, we'll do another example of an off angle and an example of a flank, right? If our team's here, enemy team's there, we can take a really, really quick off angle just to go up to high ground. Like all high grounds act as off angles because we can just get around the shields and the tanks super easily, right? Like we've discussed with high grounds, gives us a lot more visibility to work with, right? Even on a character like, not on a Hanzo, they could still do the same thing and just walk up to the stairs, which is relatively fast, right?
Yep.
But a flank would be if we went like something like this, where we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So it's pretty long, and here it's not really safe because over here we don't have any team support. They can't heal us or see us or get to us, and we don't really have any mobility to get away, and they turn around and we're pretty much dead, right? So basically flanks are inherently dangerous and also long and or long, right? Either or really. Some characters can go for flanks, like Soldier and Tracer can go for flanks, but Hanzo, you're not going to want to go on those too often. You're going to want to stick more towards your team, right, and go for off angles instead, right?
Yep. Makes sense.
So just if we went back to the main game we're working with, what that would look like is coming into the fight. We probably look to go more towards like right side or top right and look to take that, which that is a little bit more of a flank time-wise, but you can also go for those, to clarify as well, is you can go for flanks as long as the fight is not started yet, like in between fights, right? Because we can reposition there and it not take a super long time if we're doing it in between fights, but if we're doing it in the middle of a fight, then we're just wasting a whole lot of time and putting our team at a disadvantage.
Yep.
Right, so where were we at? We were somewhere around here.
I think 555 or something.
Yeah. So like we spend a lot of time just sitting at this angle where potentially like we could at the very beginning of this fight be positioning ourselves over here so that we can take this angle that gets us a little bit to the side angle of the tanks. The other thing that I didn't mention that this does for us is this creates what you call a crossfire effect, right? So let's say, for example, we just somehow ended up being back here. So if we are here, then that means that we are coming from them from a completely different angle than our team. And therefore, if we're over here with our team, they can put all of their attention this way and have 6 people looking this way. If we go behind them, then we split their attention and we make half of them look at us and half of them look at our team. And therefore, it's less pressure on both sides, right? Now, we don't want to go in without our team because then they have 6 people looking at us, and that's a whole lot more pressure. But we want to do it at the same time and sync up with them, right? The other thing is that they're not going to be communicating this, so a lot of times this just causes chaos and disruption on the enemy team, and it's just going to be really good for us because it confuses them, and it means that they're going to be a lot less efficient with the damage that they're outputting and what they're doing. So we just want to look to go on flanks, right? So here we can just go like top right, for example, and as our team pushes in the front, they're going to back up. We can take top right high ground, shoot at them from behind. This would be slightly more flanky, but as long as we're doing it at the very beginning of the fight, it should not be a problem. Especially since we can shoot at them from the right side to start off here.
Yep.
Now instead, we just spend a lot of time shooting at tanks. Now D.Va just goes in and feeds, so that's really good for us. Okay. Make sure we're paying attention to our health bar, and when we are low, I saw us doing this earlier, but it's just good to keep up the habit of requesting healing. And if we're not noticing that we're low, then that's an awareness problem, and we want to make sure that when we see that we take damage, that we're paying attention to our health and looking for healing. Because when you get hit by a mine like that, right, you see your character makes a gasping sound. You see your entire screen
Yep.
is red. You see right above your crosshair, you see red marks in the direction the damage came from. Your health, and then
Yep.
therefore we want to glance at our health bar, request healing, so we're not sitting at 1 HP. Okay, because now we're still sitting pretty low. Alright, here we got a little too aggressive. We ended up leaping into them. Now, let's say, for example, we just did the opposite thing and leapt backwards towards our team. Well, now, even if we get frozen here, we're around the corner, and therefore we're a lot safer than being right up here in front of the Mei, right? So whenever we're getting bombed or Mei frozen or anything like that, where we're trying to run away behind and get away from it, we always want to try to prioritize getting towards our team, where it's a little bit safer than running into them, because this is almost doubling our chances of dying.
Yeah, makes sense.
So just run towards team, not away. Somehow May didn't land it, and we got her. So, just because a mistake isn't punished doesn't mean it's not a mistake.
Yeah.
Still got to pay attention to their health bar, as we are still sitting at 100 HP, and I've not seen us request healing. I haven't seen it. There's a health pack on the left side we could have gone for. We just want to be doing something about our health and not letting us sit at 100. We're also doing some half-charge shots there. We're doing a lot of half-charge shots here. Which again is just not very, that's not max damage. You're not going to be getting a whole lot out of it. Just going to be inefficient. When you fully charge your shots, it's going to mean that you have more time to line them up and make sure that they're hitting, and they're going to be able to do a lot more damage. So you just want more of a punch. That's why you do the same thing on Widowmaker. You don't want to just tap, fire, tap, tap, tap. You want to charge up, shoot, charge up, shoot. Here we see that we do that. We don't charge up like 3/4, half charge, half charge, half charge, half charge. Right, and then we do it again, right? So we just did it like 7 times in a row there. Okay, again, kind of.
I think my thought process with that is, when you're fully charged up, it feels like your movement slows down, and I think I was trying to back up, but still put in damage as I'm trying to back away.
Yeah, so your movement does slow down, but yeah, you're correct there. If we're trying to back away here, just keep in mind the fact that you have your leap available, right? So often, I don't know if I've seen. I haven't been paying attention to it. The leap usually is an ability that needs to be paid attention to. But here, just want to make sure we're using it, right? Because we can just fully charge the shots and leap away,
Yep.
rather than just half charge them. And on top of that, I think we were doing it even before we were really trying to back up, because you can see like here on the D.Va, we're kind of walking towards her. We're not backing up here, right?
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about for sure.
Okay, so another death results from being out in the open. So we are going to talk about positioning real quick. So 631. Okay, 631. I keep forgetting the number I say, so I'm just going to say it a couple times.
I'll remember it.
Yep. So coming back to the training range here.
Real quick, something I've kind of noticed. I think it's a habit because I was playing Reaper for so long. I like find myself in the front line and
Yep.
like shit. I'm like way too close to everybody, and I'm like not playing in my what I would consider an effective range.
Yep.
It's definitely a habit I'm trying to break.
Definitely,
I'm like,
definitely.
Why am I even here?
Yep.
Like that was like really close to everybody.
Yep. Sure. That's definitely, that's not what I was going to particularly go over, but yes, that is definitely a thing that you want to pay attention to. As Hanzo, though he can play at a long range and he can play at a close range, he prefers mid range because that's what his kit allows for. There are a lot of characters that just do better at this range than him, and that means that you probably don't want to be at this range if a McCrea's flashbang, Reinhardt can swing on you, Reaper is shooting, right? So you don't want to play at this distance. Usually you want to play more towards like this, right? Put yourself at a safe distance from people. You also don't want to try to snipe too much, as you can theoretically one tap from here, but it's also their bodies are going to be smaller. You don't have a scope like Widowmaker, so shots from here are going to be a lot more inaccurate. You also don't have like a lower sensitivity, so it's just going to be a lot harder to hit those shots. So you want to kind of prioritize mid-range. Now, on to what we were talking about. So if we are standing here, right, and this is positioning advice that will apply to every single character in the game, besides maybe like Wrecking Ball or something like that. Most characters in the game, right, and also most FPS games out there, right? If we are standing here and there's a bunch of enemies right there, all shooting at us, ulting at us, it takes us, right, 1, 2, 3 seconds to get behind cover. Right. Now from this point, we are no longer able to get shot at. You can't shoot through solid objects. We're safe. Right. But in the time it took us to get here, right, we ended up dying because we are too far on the open. Now, if we are standing here, we can, in half of a second, go boom, they can't see us, right? Boom, they can't see us, right? So now, this is much better positioning because we have access to instant cover and instant safety, right? So therefore, bad positioning is the absence of cover, and good positioning is the usage of cover, right? So we just want to make sure that we're placing ourselves near it, and there's a ton of different types of cover in the game, right? We talked about how high ground all acts as natural cover, right? The entire thing. We have low ground here. The further and further away we stray, this is worse and worse positioning, right? But we also have like slopes like this. There we have pillars that all act as cover while in between charging shots, right? While we're low HP, while we're reloading on certain characters. Right? Corners are gonna be a big major one as well. Any random object lying around, right? You use a payload like this, right? Pillar, corner, doorway, corner, right? It's just all over the place. You just want to look for it and utilize it. And just keep in mind, because I haven't really seen you on high ground too much, so I don't have a way to say this, but just keep in mind that you, while you're on high ground, there's a bad way to use it. Right? We don't want to be standing right here because this means that 5 people can see us and shoot at us all at the same time. So instead, we might want to back up. The people can just shoot at us, just stand away from the ledge a little bit, and that way you're utilizing cover and not standing too far out in the open. Right?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I'm trying to get in the habit of like going on high ground more. I found it difficult like at first because like when I was playing like Reaper and stuff, or I occasionally like played Soldier and whatnot, but it's easier to track on high ground than it is to hit a projectile. I noticed I felt like a lot of times I wasn't getting very much value on high ground because I felt like I wasn't hitting shots, but now that I'm getting better, I'm working on trying to incorporate that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's harder to hit the head, I feel like, from high ground with a projectile than it is to just track somebody and take them out up on high ground. Yeah, but I definitely want to try to use it.
Which is also going to depend on your range, right? Because Hanzo is very, very close to being a hit scan character just because he has a very insanely fast projectile. Like if you're right here, you can be pretty much aiming directly at people's heads, right? I can aim here. So now once when we're right on top of somebody, we can aim at their heads. When we start getting a little bit further away from people, I'm aiming at their head, we can still hit them. Now we're getting to that range. We're on this spot. Now we're a little bit too far. Where even if I'm trying to perfectly track them here, now if we're getting to this distance, now it ends up going behind them, right? Yeah. So that's where we need to start leading it and aiming ahead rather than aiming behind. So we just want to pay attention to the distance where we're playing at against people as well, and just leading it further and further at further distances, right? As well as what we were talking about before with if we're back here aiming at somebody's head, oh, sorry, that was a little too close apparently. If we're back here aiming at somebody's head, right, it's just going to end up hitting his body because it has a drop on it, right? Yeah. So we just want to pay attention to those things as well.
Yeah, I did notice that the actual way I have my crosshair set up, I notice at a distance, if I have their head right at the bottom where my crosshair lands, it typically hits headshots when it's from a distance, so I try to utilize that.
All right, so we said 6 something. I forgot the number again.
Yeah, I think it's 631.
All right.
I just died.
Yeah, okay, so he died. Now deaths, fantastic way to self-improve, right? You can look at your deaths even while you're in the middle of playing. This is how I improved at the game. I never got coaching. I never got coaching at all until after I'd already hit my peak. Then I got coaching twice. One actually once by Heaton. It was the guy who you said coached you, right?
Yep. Yep.
And that was like 2 weeks before I quit the game professionally. Quit the game competitively. But in any case, right, most of what I learned was all self-taught because while I was playing, I would basically go, okay, I died here. Deaths are obviously bad, right? We put our team at a disadvantage. We can't do anything. Deaths aren't fun because you can't participate and we're not doing anything at all. So if you can look to cut out deaths, that's a very fantastic way to look to improve the game. And most deaths are going to be caused by kind of 3 different areas. You have deaths are caused by positioning, awareness, and aggression, and then those are going to be most deaths. And sometimes you have ability usage, mess ups, and stuff like that. But most of the time, it's going to come down to one of those three, and that would be this death. It comes down to positioning, and also I'd probably say a little bit of aggression because we ended up getting way too aggressive and way too out in the open, and we just were a little too far forwards, right? So
Yep.
we can look at that death and go, okay, what did we do wrong, right? Out of position, right? Now, what could we have done instead, right? Step 2 is what was mistaken? How do we fix it, right? What could we have done better? So instead of being up here where this is out in the open, way too far forwards out in the open, we can instead come back to over here where now we're a little bit more towards a medium distance where we're not on top of people. We can have cover usage, right, and not be so far out in the open, which just means that we're next to a lot better positioning. So whenever you die to like a positional error, you can think, okay, where could I have stood instead, right? And that'll get
Yep.
your brain moving and working on it. Just keep in mind that not every single death is going to be, you're not going to be able to learn by every single death. That's why I haven't brought this up before. It's going to be like around 75% of deaths where you can fix something on them, but the other 25%, like not really much you could have done, right?
Yep.
But really
sure.
great way to try to learn and improve on your own.
Heroes never die. Healing stream engaged.
Watch her defense matrix. If she has DM up, just look to stop shooting, right? That way we have our storm arrows for when she's done with her defense matrix,
Yep.
rather than just wasting them all into the defense matrix. So just awareness again, paying attention to it. Now I guess we've seen enough awareness mistakes to, I guess, go over awareness. Now, there's a lot of different types of awareness, and so far it hasn't looked like there's too much. It looks like a tiny little bit in each different area, so we can go through all these different areas, right? So you have HUD awareness, right, and being aware of time bank, your health bar, the abilities, your ultimates. So far the only thing really in that HUD is just paying attention to your health, and we just had an instance where we need to pay attention to our health. You also have kill feed watching, which we had 1 or 2 fights where we just needed to do that. You also have audio awareness and making sure we're listening to our surroundings, which has happened once or twice where we didn't hear the Mercy who was shooting at us, right? So in
Yep.
that case, you just want to turn up your volume if you need to. I have my volume at like 20% right now. I usually have this at like 100 if I'm playing competitively, just so I can hear what's going on around me.
Yep.
On top of that, you have this one's probably say we're going to be one of the bigger ones, maybe on top of watching kill feed, is paying attention to what is happening around me. Now, this is probably one of the harder ones, but is just making sure we're being aware of where enemy players, where teammates, right? And when we understand that a little bit better, we are able to make better decisions of aggression, positioning, when we're doing what, right? So we just want to make sure we're paying attention to that as well, instead of just kind of aiming forwards all the time, doing slow pans. We want to look left, look right, do a 360 once in a while, pay attention to what our team's doing, right? And then you have some other areas like watching health bars. I don't think we have any problem with that. Watching like ultimates, no problem with that. Now, so it's just a lot of tiny things and a lot of different areas of awareness that adds up. Now, awareness, that might seem like a pretty vague thing to look to get better at, right? That it's just like, okay, yeah, Boogie, I get you that you're saying work on awareness, but how does one work on just seeing things, right? Well, it's the same way that you look to work on anything that you're trying to improve on, right? Is you focus in and make sure that you're not autopiloting while you're playing, right?
Yep.
So basically, if we're autopiloting while we're playing, or even just focusing on winning instead, then that means that we're never really going to improve at all. But if we really focus in and our brain looks something like this, where we're going awareness, 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 right? And we're giving ourselves a constant reminder while we're playing to look around, look at things, right? And when we're doing that, we'll notice that our awareness is looking a little bit more solid than usual. It's looking a little bit better. And if we keep that up consistently, it starts to form as a habit. And when it forms as a habit, we no longer have to really look to work on those things anymore because they just come naturally. So we can put our attention and focus into something else, into a different area, right?
Definitely.
Now, we talked about a lot so far. You're not going to want to try to focus on every single thing at once because that'll get overwhelming. Just look to focus on like one category or like kind of one subcategory at a time, right? So awareness or ability usage or ultimate usage or, you know, positioning or awareness, right? Or mechanics, right? One of those or just 3 sub things. You just don't want to be overwhelming yourself.
Definitely.
Take cover.
Okay, some more half charge shots. If you struggle to get out of the habit of that, I'd recommend maybe just going back to the default crosshair for a time on Han. If you have it swapped off that, just so you can get a. Or the other thing you can do is just turn on. You can turn on where is it at? On Hanzo, you can turn on your show accuracy. This doesn't work when you have a dot, but if you have like a crosshairs, what'll happen is it'll kind of condense in on itself. When it's fully charged, it'll stop moving. That way you can just tell that it's fully charged, but you can also just look at your bow. Just make sure we're firing off fully charged shots because that's going to be a lot more efficient and get you a lot more damage out. Has a lot of benefits, and we're going to be lacking a little bit on our damage and output and our kill potential if we're just continuously being in that bad habit. A lot of tank shooting. I probably say like so far it's this game it's been like 70% tank shooting, which I forgot to mention this when we were talking about it earlier, but that's not bad all the time, right? There are specific times to shoot at tanks, right? You shoot at tanks when they are the only thing to shoot at. For example, if you don't have access to a off angle or a flank, which aren't going to present themselves all the time, right? You can shoot at tanks if they're low. You can shoot at tanks if they're out of position. But when you don't want to prioritize tanks, right? It's target priority, not target only shoot at DPS and supports. It's just we prioritize DPS and supports because they're better to kill, easier to kill. But a lot of the time we just end up shooting at tanks here, and that just means we don't secure kills easily. We're not doing really much at all, and we're just kind of shield spamming, and therefore we're just not really doing as much as we could.
The dragon awakens.
So I should be taking high ground right there.
You know,
For sure. Well, I want to run that way. That's not bad. High ground would be better.
okay, there it looks like we sent it a little. I like the idea of sending it behind people. That's a really good idea. It's usually a good idea to just put it slightly behind people, as their natural instinct will be to walk backwards. But here we end up throwing it slightly too far backwards, as it gives them a little bit too much time to react to where it's going, right? So you can see how like where they are, where Crosshair is. Instead, our Crosshair should be. You can't see my mouse, can you?
No.
I'm trying to think. It should be more towards like just right behind them, like right around here. Yeah, like right behind the Moira, rather than like really really far off to the right, which means that it's just we're not really getting as much as we could be, right? So they have like a ton of time to react to this, and it's not really going to where that. He just very easily moves out of it. So just right behind them, not too behind them. You have the right idea. Just want to get it a little bit tighter on them.
Yep.
Nice shots. Just a lot of body shots. We're going to make those headshots if we get work on crosshair placement. Uh-oh. So, again, bad positioning, right? Just kind of standing out in the open on the ground, where taking high ground probably be the best place to be here. Also, more of where let's see where were we at before we died here? Character. Right, we're kind of again.
Not a good position. I could totally be up on that high ground and just be picking people off right there on the left.
Yeah, exactly. Also, kind of out in the open, right? Not near any cover at the moment. Now we do move towards the doorway, which is good. Ball also rolls May into us, so thanks, Ball. All right. So we get the mistake here. Let's move on. Where did we go? Okay, that was the end of the round.
Yep. Yeah, we got it there.
Ready for battle. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming.
Okay, very nice. That'd be a good idea to just like launch a storm arrow through there instead of just shooting shots. That way you can just get a whole lot of extra. The big thing you're looking for there is not necessarily a kill, because very rarely is that going to happen. But you're looking for ult charge and just some initial shield pressure is the big thing you're looking for there. Look to use your Sonic. Right, that way we can see where she's coming from a little bit faster, a little bit easier. Just so, oops, didn't mean to skip there. Just want to look to use that ability a little bit more often. I think that we have really good placement with it so far. It's just that we use it a little bit infrequently, so we just want to use it a lot more often as it allows us to locate people and also allows us to follow up with kills. And it's not just us as well; it's also our entire team, right? So the more often we use it, the more often we're gonna get value out of it, and abilities and ults that we don't use, we don't get value.
Yep.
Okay. I wouldn't spend too much time attempting to duel her, as she kind of has you outclassed here in terms of dueling potential.
Oh yeah,
As
for sure.
Tracer and Hanzo, like if it's just a 1v1, Tracer kind of beats you out real good there. You don't have a whole lot that's going to be pretty very easy to kill her. So here we should probably be sticking just more towards our supports, and our playstyle should be looking like this, where we Sonic behind us, we shoot, we pay attention, we shoot, pay attention, right, and just keep checking her, and if she comes to us, then we contest her, but other than that, we don't want to be actively seeking her out, because our character just shouldn't be doing that.
Yep.
Okay, very nice. You see just your Crosshair in comparison to her, it's just not very head level here.
So normally with tracers, I honestly, like, I don't know if it's better to just, like, normally I try to go for the body shot and melee when they're coming in close.
Yeah, if they're right on
But
top
should I
of
just
you,
get in that,
yeah.
should I just get in that habit of trying to sink the headshot on her? I just find it hard to.
Yeah, so
Sometimes I
you'll-
get lucky, but
yeah, most of the time you'll find that it's not that different from hitting a headshot to a body shot, because if you're going to be hitting them anyways, that same shot most of the time would be hitting them if you're just hitting a headshot if you're just aiming up a little bit higher, right?
yeah.
So most of the time that you would just be hitting the headshot there. If she's like an inch from you, then that's fine, but you'll probably don't want to be doing that if she's outside of your melee distance, because then she just has time to recall and blink away.
Yeah.
But like if she's on top of you, then it doesn't matter too much, because then yeah, of course, the body shot or headshot doesn't matter because you just get the kill, right?
Yeah. Makes
Okay.
sense.
So again, target priorities, right? Like if you just take a look at their comp, Reinhardt, Diva, and Tracer are probably going to be like the hardest things for us to kill. Yet it seems like the hardest things to kill seem to be the things that we like to shoot at the most, right? We don't often spend time shooting at the Mercy or the Junkrat or the Moira, even though they're probably going to be the easiest things to kill, and therefore we can get early picks on them every single fight, and just high value picks on top of that, right? Here it does not seem that we are paying attention to the flow of the fight, and we end up kind of
Nope.
tunnel. So our team ends up losing here, right? They get picked, right? Sigma gets picked. Then if we keep watching it, Ball gets picked, right? So down 2. And we just seem to be kind of like not really paying attention here, right? We don't even notice Ryan on top of us until like a second too late. In this situation, we just want to be paying attention, because potentially we could be looking to back out slightly faster, or if we just want identify, hey, we probably can't back out. We want to be running into them, preferably running on cart, because if we jump on cart, this stalls it out, and it means that we have more time to recontest, right? But it's just gonna end up staggering us here, because you can see like already where Sigma died first, and or Mercy died first technically, right? Sigma's died here, and he's walking back. So by the time you respawn here, he's going to be 3/4 back and ready to go back in. So us dying late here is just not going to be very good for us. Actually, how did we get out? Did we get rest? What the
I think
heck?
I lived.
You live somehow? All right.
I might. I don't know. I don't really remember.
I left you assuming that you were dead at like 1 HP with Reinhardt swinging on you. All right. Very, very good. This is good positioning. We are in a doorway. We have cover. This is a good off angle. Your main angle is over here. This is very safe and very short. And this is a good example of an off angle that allowed us to get right past their tanks and onto the thing that was super easy to kill. And therefore, we got value out of it, right? So this is good positioning at the moment.
I actually got a lot of value out of being at this spot here.
All right.
I think.
Very nice.
Yep.
All right, so sorry, we didn't end up getting to finish that, but we're real quick. We're just gonna go over a kind of wrap up review as well as kind of main points we want to work on. All right, so basically just going around the block real quick. Ability usage, not too shabby at all. I don't really have a problem at all with our storm arrows, and just make sure that when you're storm arrowing, you're using the first shot and you're not just wasting it, right? You're shooting storm arrow, right? You're not just storm arrowing and then canceling it. Now on top of that, with your Sonics, just use it a little bit more often. I like the placement with it. That's it, right? So other than those two tiny little things, ability usage looking really fine and not really detecting any problem there. Ultimate
Awesome.
usage,
Double kill.
ult-wise, I think that we're running into a little bit more problems. I'd probably say it's like kind of more in the medium area of needing to be worked on. A lot of the problems came from awareness and just making sure that you are not ulting when you've won or lost a fight, right? Besides that, look to toss it a little bit behind people. It's a good idea to always throw a Sonic before you go, just so you can see where people are at, right? But besides that, I think the placement was usually pretty decent, and we used it at pretty good timings. And besides the fights that we didn't have good timings.
Yeah, for sure.
Now moving on to mechanics. I'll probably say this one that ramps it up a little bit more over those two, as mechanics has a few different areas that we want to work on. Probably the biggie of the two are going to be crosshair placement and target priority, as those two just mean that we're going to be killing a lot more things, hitting a lot more headshots, and also focusing the right things so we're not wasting a lot of our efforts. Make sure crosshair's aimed at head level, make sure that we're aiming where we know people are going to be, make sure that we're not focusing tanks, but we're focusing DPS and supports. Make sure as well some other tinier things with the mechanics, that we're not quarter charging or half charging our shots, because that's going to be a little bit inaccurate and hard to hit. Make sure as well that we are looking to aim up a little bit the further and further away that we get, and we're also leading our shots the further and further away we get, because it's a projectile, right? It's not a very fast projectile, but it's still a projectile, right? And it does have a little bit of drop, so if we're aiming at head level from all the way over here, we're not going to be hitting a headshot, we're going to be hitting a body shot, so we just want to look to angle it up a little bit more so we can hit the headshot. All right, moving on. Positioning awareness are where we get to the two biggies. Positioning, a lot of different things with this. We ended up dying quite a bit from our positioning. Make sure with our positioning that we are not sticking at close range or long range, but we're trying to stick towards medium range on Hanzo, because that's where he thrives. Make sure that you're not standing out in the open, but you're respecting cover usage, so therefore good positioning is the usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover, right? So just make sure we're using that. On top of that, make sure you're looking to take high ground a lot more often, as very rarely are we on high ground, and that was a very high ground centric map. There was a ton of high ground on that map, and we very rarely used it. On top of that, with positioning, that kind of goes well with the target priorities, is make sure we're taking off angles, or we're not just sticking with our team the entire time, because that means that we're just shooting at shields the entire time, right? Off angles are inherently short and safe. Flanks are only going to be okay if you're flanking in between a fight, right? If you're doing it in the middle of a fight, you're going to be putting yourself outside of the fight for way too long. On top of that, try to not put yourself in a dangerous situation, as Hanzo doesn't have too much survivability. Characters like Tracer and Soldier can be a lot more flanky and do it in the middle of fights. They can do it in a lot more dangerous flanks, right? Just make sure you're not going for dangerous flanks on Hanzo, and that if you're going for a long flank, you're doing it in between fights.
Gotcha.
Awareness, a lot of different aspects of awareness. We talked about them all pretty recently, but we'll just do a quick run through. Watch your health, watch kill feed, watch people around you, right? Keep your ears open and listen to audio awareness, right? And this all allows you to make better decisions, right? Because when you're not paying attention, you can't inherently make good decisions. But when you do know what's happening, you can make better decisions. So kind of main points then of like what we want to work on, I'd probably say number one was positioning, as that led to a lot of deaths and a lot of missed potential because of how we were positioning ourselves. Number two is mechanics. I actually, looking back on it, I think awareness is actually lower than I initially thought it was. So I think awareness is still a big thing, but it comes in at number three, a little bit lower than mechanics in what it needs to be worked on first. Number 4 is going to come in at ult usage, and then number 5 is coming in at ability usage. We're looking really solid with those. All right.
Got it.
Any questions about anything we've gone over?
No, it was great, man. Very informative. I have a lot of stuff to work on, so
yeah.
awesome.
All right. Well,